This is a ignorant thing to say, but I'm not necessarily sure that county lines is a pressure that every teenager in the country feels. I mean, obviously it's horrific, but to say you've got pressures from social media and county lines, I'm not sure it's the same thing. Brendan on WhatsApp has just messaged in, if you get an actual teenager to ring in, I'll make a donation of £100 to a charity of your choice. Right, come on, listeners. Let's sort this out. If a teenager phones in now, 03456060973, we might need you to send us a photo of your ID. We won't tell anyone the specifics, but if you can prove you're a teenager, I think Brendan's gonna sling £100 to a charity of your choice. The lines are free. 03456060973. Brendan said, bet. Are you going to call? 03456060973. This point about mental health, very important, I think. I think it's probably actually the most important in all of this, and I suspect it's what we'll talk about over the course of the next hour or so. The story continues. Cooper, who first announced an ambition for a £100 million Young Futures policy at last year's Labour conference, said there would be youth hubs for teenagers, similar to how the Blair administration launched Sure Start for babies and toddlers. The programme will be aimed at giving all teenagers the best start in life. I don't think anyone can agree with that. Part of its work will be identifying or mapping young people most at risk of being drawn into violence, exploitation, crime and antisocial behaviour. After weeks of dealing with policing of racist riots, the Home Secretary said she'd wanted to get on with other priorities as well. It's part of our cross-government mission to halve serious violence and also rebuild confidence in policing and the criminal justice system, she said. As part of that, the Young Futures programme is a 10-year vision about how we prevent young people being drawn into crime in the first place, and also about how we give their future back. Very good. Very proper. On you go, Yvette Cooper. But I found this interesting. First, because Yvette Cooper appears to have rejected the tendency in our boomerocracy, in our pensioner democracy, in fact, to kind of belittle, demean, and generally rag on the younger generation. And so we have to applaud. We have to respect the fact that she's declined that opportunity. We enjoy it, dare I say it. But it got me thinking about the tendency to say, this is all easy. The kids have never had it so good. The quite frankly sort of embarrassing Elon Musk, Joe Rogan meme, right? That's like, hard times make strong men make good times make weak men make hard times, and so the cycle goes on and on and on. And obviously you can infer that we've been living in the good times and we now have some kind of blight of weak-willed soy boys running the country, and that we're in the grip of some kind of soy boy renaissance where everyone's in touch with their feelings and jeopardising Western civilization. The Western civilization is on the brink of collapse because we stopped wolf whistling at women in the street or whatever it is. And it got me thinking about Yvette Cooper declining the opportunity to kind of partake in that hand-wringing. It got me thinking about the apparent willingness of Yvette Cooper to engage with the actual reality of young people's lives. And for a moment, let's just ground that conversation in reality, not the alternate reality that occupies the opinion pages of the right-wing press and loses its mind over avocados on toast and Netflix accounts and all the other cliches. And certainly not the sort of grounded in the alternate reality of the increasingly black-pilled discourse of Twitter. But what is it like to be a young person in Britain? So maybe you were at school during COVID, right? And you missed out on the best years of your life, what we euphemistically call your formative years, which essentially means the period of time when you start having sex and start experimenting with altered states of consciousness. You enjoy more freedom and more personal choice in your life out of the kind of watchful eye of your parents and the education system, and gain more responsibility, but not about existential things. Not about existential things like, I don't know, paying a mortgage. Like, where will I live if I can't pay my rent this month? I know that actually many people by the age of 18 will know what that feels like anyway, but we're speaking in generalities here. And if you do, then whether or not your school was open during lockdown was probably slightly less important for you. But the lockdowns shut the nightclubs. They closed the schools. They closed the unis. So that's that written off. Everyone you know has a camera in their pocket that can immortalise your lowest moment. Occasions of public humiliation or otherwise on social media. Maybe you then decide to go to university. Maybe you decide to better yourself with a higher education and better society, by the way, by becoming an active participant in the knowledge economy. Well, that's going to cost you. In fact, that's going to cost you tens of thousands of pounds. And what's more, when you graduate, you'll probably end up doing a job for a stagnant wage that has little to no bearing on the degree you studied. You won't be able to buy a house because property is now as expensive as it was in the Victorian period when property ownership was the reserve of our wealthy elites. So you'll probably spend about 50% or more of your earnings on rent instead. Maybe you'll just choose to stay with mum and dad, as is now the most common living arrangement for young adults in Britain. But I fundamentally view this as a breach of the social contract. I really do. We outsource, bequeath, lend certain things, don't we? Our freedoms to governments. We say, yeah, all right, you can take X percentage of my income every month for the provision of services. Okay, I will abide by the laws of the land. I won't steal. I won't cheat. I won't rob. I won't defraud because you will protect me if someone else does the same to me. You know, the argument, right? Leviathan against the state of nature because man's life is nasty, brutish and short, were it not for the protection of the government. And you make those trade-offs with the expectation that life will get better. You make those pledges with the expectation that if you do the right things, if you work hard, if you study, you'll be rewarded. And for this generation, can we say that that's the case? I think our society is fundamentally broken. I think the essential promise of it used to be work hard, get on, be rewarded. Instead now we bequeath a lower level of living standards, a burning planet, and we demand their gratitude. So no, I don't think this generation have it easier. For every welcome advance in modern medicine, for every improved pixel of television resolution, there has been a backslide in the economic prospects for an entire generation and a fraying of the social fabric. I mean, I mentioned climate change in passing there, but really it's probably the most egregious of the lot. The generations before our teenagers now have kind of expedited the unlivability of Earth. They've hastened the destruction of the planet. So no, I would probably wager that teenagers don't have it easier. But really, if I'm honest, I'm against the generalisation because for all of the material circumstance, for all of the specificity that I've just explained, the measurable, the tangible and the real, every life is different, isn't it? And to say teenagers had it harder or easier implies there is some kind of universal adolescent experience, which we all know is nonsense. There really are no easy parts of our lives. Each stage has its own ups and downs, doesn't it? Joys and challenges. If anyone's watched, don't know if anyone will remember, maybe 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. A very moving, touching, one of the most depressing things I think you could probably watch on TV, to be quite honest with you. And if you've seen that, you'll understand what I'm talking about, the futility of generalisation. Because a teenager can be a bully or be bullied, right? The short life depicted in that series was not a happy one. And other teenagers' childhoods can also be a picture of happiness, can't they? But still waters do run deep. You know, life is a long journey, and adolescence is but one stop on it. And what's more, if you're at that stop, everyone seems to treat you as inferior, as silly. It's condescending. I think children have an emotional intelligence that most adults don't give them credit for. Probably as a hangover from their inability to communicate verbally with much effect when they were younger. They understand things that we ignore and that we ignorantly kind of believe is flying over their heads. And yet you have people being snotty and sarcastic with you because you're a teenager instead of treating you like a young adult. It's insulting. So do we think that that teenagers have it harder? Yvette Cooper does. Do teenagers have it harder now? Does social media, does serious youth violence, the lack of mental health provision, does that make being a teenager harder now than it was when you were younger? And actually, I'd like to hear as well. I'd like to hear about what your adolescence was like. What was the country like? 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850 or ask Alexa to send a comment to LBC. Time now is 5:16.
This is LBC.
What to give your brother-in-law for his birthday?